this WiLLcast was with President Majewski of Marian University. Becca, what'd you think?
She is a very refreshing personality.
Yeah, she was great to have on.
Such positive energy, really upbeat, just really fun to have at the WiLLcast table.
And she's done a lot of stuff. She was a clinical psychologist. Now she's running a university here in Fond du Lac, and we were honored to be a part of an awards banquet that they had a few months ago, and their staff and their students, and just, as you said, the overall vibe was really good.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed. We didn't know much going into that dinner, the Business and Industry Awards, and it was really well done event and very uplifting, shined a really positive light on the both Fond du Lac and Wisconsin business community. And we got to meet a lot of people that I didn't know from the Fond du Lac community, so that's always a good sign too, that there's a lot of people engaged. So she was absolutely lovely.
Yes.
And was so fun to have here, and her perspective on four-year universities, because it's something we talk about a lot here, that versus the tech education system and things like that. And she seems to be moving Marian in the right direction when it comes to initiatives with different programs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're holding to their their core values as a private university, and then also kind of branching into things that are quite relevant in our industry, some of the construction management and project management, which she touched on, that's going to be part of their business program. But they seem like they're listening to area employers, especially those of us that are in construction or close to construction, and it's cool to see them truly listening and tailoring the programs to that.
Definitely, and I think that is something that listeners can look forward to. Is she will talk a lot more about how they determine new programs to introduce to universities and schools and things like that, which is something you don't think about a lot, but that is a really intensive process, and there's a lot that goes into it. So that was really interesting to hear her go into those details as well.
Yeah, and another thing that ties back to Wisconsin Lighting Lab is Marian University has a very big sports program.
Yes, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and they have some really neat fields over on their campus, and hopefully someday we'll get to light up one of the fields. we did throw that in there.
That was another subtle hint.
Yeah, but it was we do a lot of work for colleges and universities, and certainly are always here to support local programs as much as possible. But it was really cool to have her on, and we appreciate her coming on the WiLLcast, and it was great. I think everybody's going to enjoy it.
I agree.
So you've been to Alaska twice?
I have.
Twice. We actually, there's a picture right there. That is University of Alaska Anchorage. So we did that project, I think 5 or 6 years ago.
And I've been in Anchorage twice.
Have you really?
Yeah.
That was the first, because we went there in January for work, and you get a lot of credibility when you go to Alaska in January.
Oh my God, yes.
Because it's basically dark 20 hours a day.
And cold.
So, most people that go there for work, they try and schedule it around fly fishing and other types of adventures they can have. We went there in January to help commission this project. The funny thing was, it was about 50 degrees every single day, and in Wisconsin it was -10. So we were ready for it.
Wow. It was cold when I was there August.
In August.
Mm-hmm.
And is it what does daylight look like in August?
Oh, it's light out pretty long.
All the time, yeah.
10 o'clock at night, it's
okay.
still fairly light.
Yeah.
But the temperatures, it was not warm.
Yeah.
Either trip, it was not warm.
And did you grow up in the Midwest? Are you from the Midwest?
I'm originally from California.
California, okay. What part?
Santa Rosa.
Okay.
Yep. But I have lived here a long time, so
okay.
I'm Wisconsin hardy.
When did you move to Wisconsin?
When I was a kid.
When you were a kid, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And then I know we talked. So you were through here a few months ago. We met, and we gave you a tour.
Oh, my God. It was fabulous.
And then you were nice enough to have us as part of your event here this year, the business event. And Becca and I were just talking before you got here. That was an exceptional event. That was awesome. From the food to just the overall vibe and all the the companies that were part of it and your staff. That was got a lot of compliments. Just from people that were there and people that we brought, it was a well-run operation.
Well, thank you. We have a very good team at Marian that puts that whole event into play.
Yeah.
And it's one of my, I love going to commencement. I love the first day when students are on campus. But the B&I dinner is really an opportunity for Marian to recognize the contributions of so many companies and nonprofits in this area, which I think is hugely important.
Absolutely.
It really is.
And that event's been going on for a few decades now.
Oh, yeah. It's
been a while.
It has.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get excited as soon as, it's over, we begin to think about, okay, what do we do differently next
Not
year?
the food. The food
The
needs to
food
stay
was-
exactly the same.
The
'cause
food
it
was like a 10 out of
so
10. The food
phenomenal.
was and those were students that prepared the food, correct?
The students, we have student ambassadors, and
Okay.
they were the wait staff, but
Okay.
we actually have professional staff who make
Okay.
the food.
Well, either way, it was very good.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
It was very quiet at our table, which never happens, but it was because we were eating.
Oh, good.
And it was phenomenal.
I will share that feedback with our folks in food services. They'll
Please
be very
do.
pleased.
And when you were through here on the tour, you'd mentioned that you guys have a new program in the construction management. I guess it's not a department, or what department is that? Would that be in?
It's actually associated with our business programs.
Oh, your business programs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where is that need being driven from?
It's interesting. When I stepped into this role about 2.5 years ago, one of the things that I did in talking to not only the trustees, but some of the business CEOs in the area was to really consider the need to do an assessment in the Fond du Lac region as to what kinds of current educational needs employers have, and then what do they see down the road. And some of the feedback I got was specifically in regard to construction management, which I found pretty exciting because my family was in construction.
Okay.
My
I thought that was the case. I had mentioned that to Becca before you came. I said,
Yeah.
I think she kind of has a construction background, a little bit anyway.
Yes. My father was a cement contractor.
Okay.
My grandfather was a cement contractor.
Those
Isn't
are
your-
the best kind of
Your
contractors.
dad's a cement
Yeah,
contractor.
yep, concrete
And-
tilt up.
And my brother, the one I went fly fishing with, just sold his company in California, in Claremont. So, I kind of grew up with it. I've always found it pretty interesting. And when I heard about the need for construction management, I thought, well, this is really an opportunity for
It really
Marian.
is.
Because one of the things that we have to do is identify new programs that have high market demand and that meet the needs of employers in the region. We may, come up with an idea and say, well, this program would be great. But if it doesn't really meet the needs of employers in the region, then that's not where we should go. And so we put together an advisory board with folks from the construction field, brought in the major companies in this area, garnered their advice and input into the process, and then created the program. So right now we are at the stage of sending in the paperwork for accreditation by the Higher Learning Commission. Whenever we start programs, we need to do that. So we have the courses developed. Last week we interviewed candidates to take over the program, to be in charge of construction management. We already have the minor going, but this would be to add a major to Marian's current array of offerings, particularly in the business area. So sometimes construction management is affiliated with an engineering program, like at Platteville. We don't have engineering, and engineering would be a heavy, heavy lift.
I think
for
we
Marian.
talked about that. Is it accreditation, or what is it's tough to, I guess,
It's
get
expensive.
in and then expensive to manage?
It's an expensive program to start.
Yep.
Very expensive.
And do they have affiliates? Like, can you become part of somebody else's extension? Or it's been a while since I've been in school, but I see a lot of sharing of resources and programs, but are there no options for that in engineering?
Well, not really in this
Okay.
area. No.
Gotcha.
In Marquette has an engineering program. MSOE has a very fine engineering.
Yes.
They both do. Platteville.
Yep.
But Marian made a decision some years ago not to go the engineering route. So this program is affiliated with our business offerings. So it is not focused really on the engineering aspects of a construction management, but more on the business side.
Will there be some classes for, technical drawings or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's still some overlap even within the business context. But maybe instead of more marketing courses, there might be more, not CAD, but there might be more construction process.
Correct.
Courses.
Correct. And courses that look at, for example, estimating, heavy equipment, contracts, those kinds of things.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Well, I can tell you just from our own experience and having gone through a recent building project and knowing, Keller and C.D. Smith and some of the other contractors in the area, I think that is going to be extremely well received. And, one of the things that, we talk a lot about, and one of our, part of our mission here at Wisconsin Lighting Lab is to try and help inspire more people into building and manufacturing and engineering. And, they're all kind of related. It's people that are, interested in knowing how things are built. Could be lights, could be construction. And, I think maybe for many, many decades, we kind of took for granted, how important that stuff was, and there's been such an exit from that in recent decades. So it's awesome to see four-year institutions investing in that. And we're a small company, and we're trying to do our small part. But I think to get the snowball rolling in the area, I think that's going to be great, because there's a lot of hands-on people in this area, and the area is really good on the engineering side, the construction side, the building side. And I think as as organizations like Marian and companies like Wisconsin Lighting Labs spotlight that more and more, I think we will start to see a shift.
I hope so. I really do see the demand is there.
Yeah.
And having students, what Marian brings to the table really is we're an applied liberal arts institution, which means all of our students go through courses that are part of what we call our Gen Ed core, that teaches problem solving, critical thinking, effective communication, how to work as part of a team, how to lead a team. Those are sometimes referred to as soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
I see them really as power skills. I think it's a misnomer to call them soft skills. They're important skills, they're power skills, and those students who go through a program that has the general education, the applied liberal arts, I think sets students apart. The other piece that we bring, we're a Catholic institution, and we're very focused and very proud of the fact that we're a Catholic institution. How does that play out? It plays out in our core values.
The value system.
It does.
Yep.
Yeah, we are the only Agnesian university in the world because we're sponsored by the Congregation of Sisters of St. Agnes, and they still sponsor us. They founded us in 1936, and we are very much connected to the sisters, and that's a good thing. But the fact that we have the applied liberal arts education, it's different from a technical school education. It's what sets us apart. And the other piece that I think really sets us apart is that we're relatively small. And our classes, I don't have any large classrooms at Marian, so there's no room with 200, 300 students. The ratio of faculty to students is about 1 to 12.
Oh, wow.
I do have classes that have 25 and sometimes 30 students, but that is not, not every class is like that. We have plenty of classes, especially upper level courses, that are smaller, so students get a lot of personalized attention. I view it really as our responsibility to make sure that the students who come to us, who want a Marian education, get the best academic experience possible and also the best co-curricular experience, which is everything that happens outside the classroom. That includes athletics, which is huge at Marian. but it also includes all of the leadership kinds of things we do, and the fact that we really do try to live our core values and make sure that our students embrace those core values as well.
Well, it sounds like you guys have a pretty tight identity at Marian, and it was that cohesion when we were there. It was very evident, which is awesome.
Yeah, and we work hard at that.
Yeah.
We really do, to make sure that our faculty and staff, especially when they're new employees at the university, that they understand what our mission is and how we deliver on that mission, but also for our students.
Mm-hmm.
And the students, they catch on pretty quickly.
So you mentioned athletics,
Uh-huh.
athletics being big at Marian.
Uh-huh.
You guys have a lot of sports fields there.
Yes, we do.
Do any of them need new lights yet?
That's a great question.
That was such a shameless transition.
It
Wow.
was.
she mentioned athletics.
I opened
she
the door.
opened the door by like an inch, and you kicked it open by about 3 feet. But
But I did drive. I drove around before the event, and man, there are some great facilities, athletic facilities there.
There are. Over 50% of our students are athletes.
Wow,
that's phenomenal.
It is.
That
We
is-
have 26 teams right now, 26 sports. We bring in quite a large number of Canadian males for
Okay.
hockey. Our newest team this year was women's field hockey.
okay.
We have 4 young women from the Netherlands who came to Marian, who play field hockey, and actually for their first year, they did very well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, last year we won the conference championship for men's basketball, and the year before that, men's hockey.
Baseball's pretty big
It
as
is.
well. Yeah, I
It
know
is.
when I was in high school, I had several people I knew that were going to Marian for baseball.
So we have phenomenal coaches. Our athletic director, Tony Draves, really does an astounding job, and so we're just very proud of all of our student athletes.
That's great.
Yeah.
In your background from an academic standpoint was psychology, if I
Yes,
recall.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
I went to UW-Oshkosh,
Okay.
then I went to Marquette University, and
Okay.
then I
Big
Market.
fan.
yes, and then I earned my doctoral degree at Adler University in Chicago.
Why'd you want to get into psychology? I was this close to being a psych major, and then my wife was a psych major, and she's a school counselor. She went to Marquette for her master's degree, and she was this close to getting her PsyD as well. But what made you want to get into that field?
It's just intriguing.
Yeah.
Understanding cognition, emotional development. People talk about, various areas of rocket science being difficult. It is human behavior and cognition, which is complicated.
Yeah.
So having the opportunity, my first course in psych, I was pretty much hooked. And I love talking about psychology. I love reading about psychology. I miss doing psychology, although to some extent I still get to do it. It's
Did
just
you
in a
do
different way.
clinical
I did.
work? You did.
I
Okay.
did. Yes. I did. I was in private practice in West Bend for 15 years.
Okay.
So I've done the clinical stuff. So I kind of miss that sometimes, but I have to tell you, being in higher education,
There's some counseling to be done, right?
well, sure. There's
Yeah.
there's always some counseling to be done, but it is such a phenomenal area. Right now, it's a difficult time because of what's happening in higher education, and the competition is stiff. The competition for recruiting students is I would say guerrilla warfare in some senses at this point. But it is such a great privilege to be able to lead an institution at this time, and to have such amazing colleagues, whether it's the vice presidents, the faculty, the staff. And Marian is especially fortunate because we have a board of trustees that really cares about the institution, cares about the students, cares about the employees, and they're very, very supportive. Not all schools have that.
Yeah, it's. I would imagine as the competition heats up, the the value set and the athletics and just kind of that whole identity is going to become, more and more important as a way to differentiate, some of the other options. But where do you see, where do you see things going over the next decade? Not necessarily just for Marian, but just, higher education in general and 4-year degrees. And what do things look like for Marian in the next chapter?
If I had a crystal ball and I could predict that.
Loaded question.
It was a loaded question. Generally speaking, in terms of higher education, those schools that can differentiate themselves and that have a strong value proposition, coupled with a strong endowment. That endowment piece is important. Smaller institutions frequently don't have a large endowment, and Marian does not.
So as far as an endowment, for those that may not know exactly what an endowment is, it's, I guess, explain that. Is it, you hear that term thrown around a lot, but it's essentially a pool of money that gets invested on behalf of the university, or what does that look like? Okay.
Yes, they are gifts to the university. Yep. Sometimes they're specified for particular areas.
Part of a trust in some cases.
Scholarships, for example, student scholarships. Sometimes they can be set aside for new buildings or for operational kinds of things.
I see.
We have a number of student scholarships that are they're endowed funds. So some schools have endowments of, $100 million, $200 million, or in some cases in the billions. And then small schools like Marian have much more modest endowments, which means that we are able to draw down less in the way of scholarships and also less in the way of operational sort of backfilling than schools who have huge amounts of money.
Yeah. And I would imagine, as president of a university, your role covers so many different disciplines.
It does.
From the endowment and the finance side of things and accounting and making sure the money that's available is being invested in the right things and curriculum and personnel. It's
students.
Yeah, that's a dynamic day. I'm sure there's a lot going on each week.
There is. It's kind of like being the mayor. Of a community.
It is a little. It's a city. It's a city.
We are our own little
at least
entity.
A village, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I call it a city. But we're our own little village.
Yeah.
And so it can vary from dealing with personnel issues to dealing with a donor.
Yeah.
Okay. To reaching out for new trustees, to student kinds of issues. I mean, it really does vary.
Yeah.
On a daily basis. No day is ever the same.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of different. You get a lot of different input from a lot of different people. I'm sure as well. Having covering so many different teams and disciplines and outside people and inside people, it's a lot to process.
It is sometimes. It's like drinking from a fire
hose.
Is. And the thing that makes higher education different is that we operate utilizing shared governance, which means that it is important to get input from faculty and staff. It's not like the president is in charge and makes all the decisions, and everybody falls in line. It doesn't work like that. And nor should it work like that. We have a group of really bright, well-educated faculty who have amazing ideas. And so it is important to listen to those ideas. It doesn't mean because they share it, we necessarily have to do it. But it is important to get that feedback.
Yeah, it's one of those cliches you hear a lot about leadership that is very true. Just it's oftentimes a listening position, more so than anything. And as you think about being in a leadership position, what are some of the other things you like to pass along to people? Or if you kind of look back at your time, really in any position you had, what are some of the most important leadership lessons that you've learned beyond listening and processing that information?
Yeah, listening is number one. Absolutely. There's a reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Okay, and sometimes that's harder to do.
Yeah.
To because it takes a lot of time to be able to listen and evaluate information. I think it's also important to have a vision. You can't just listen. You have to be able to have a vision. You have to be able to make decisions.
Yeah.
You also have to be willing to acknowledge that we all make mistakes. And I'm sure, I know I've made plenty so far in this role, but even in my earlier roles as a faculty member and then as the dean of 2 different schools, I mean, you learn from those. You try not to repeat those, but being humble, being transparent. I think that transparency piece is huge. Nobody wants to be surprised.
No. The trust factor, building trust over a long period of time.
Building trust, listening, sharing ideas, talking about, what direction can we go, should we go, how do we stay true to our mission as a Catholic private liberal arts institution, because we need to do that.
Yes.
That's core.
Part of the foundation.
It is. It is. And every decision that we make at Marian needs to be based on how does this best serve our students. And so we try to come back to that, whether it's a financial decision or some other decision. I wish I had all the answers to effective leadership, but it really is challenging yourself, reflecting on what you've done, thinking about what you can do better, and from my viewpoint, recognizing that I'm there to serve the faculty, the staff, the students, our alums, and the Fond du Lac community.
Yeah.
It's all tied together.
I appreciate those thoughts. Those are, they're always nice to, it's nice to reflect on what that means. Leadership gets thrown around a lot, but you start to see certain, consistent thoughts and ideas on the topic, and it's just nice to hear that every once in a while.
I think it's also, well, thank you for that, by the way, but I think it's also important to have a good team.
Yes.
Yeah. And I have a very, very good team. The vice presidents are phenomenal.
That's what makes it fun, too.
It does.
I think that is another component to it is, there's always so many problems to solve when you're in a position of leadership, and you have to really sort by the most important stuff.
Prioritize.
But also, try not to make it about problem solving 100% of the time. Like the fun aspect of it, and the creativity side of it, and the interacting, and the vision, and the bigger ideas. Like that's what really, I think, draws people to certain operations. And if you have that team cohesion, that's what makes coming to work a lot of fun.
And you have to have a sense of humor.
Yeah,
you really do.
Yeah.
And especially this past 2.5 years with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Trying to find a sense of humor in a pandemic is a little tricky, I will say.
Well, what Adam forgot to mention after you said it is he also has a really good team, so his life is super easy. Speaking of sense of humor.
We have a phenomenal team here.
That's what I thought.
And I love the fact that you have all these musical instruments in this
Do you play
room.
an instrument at all?
I had piano lessons for about 7 years, and I play a little classical guitar, not very well.
Classic, like finger picking guitar?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but not
Nice.
not very well.
All right. That's tough. That's I play guitar too, but I never really, other than learning some Neil Young and Bob Dylan, I never did a lot of finger picking. But the classical guitar that's tough.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It's kind of like playing a banjo a little bit.
It is.
That's on my bucket list. Have I ever the banjo.
Banjo, curling. You like
Well,
all that
okay. I mean, if we're
quirky
going to bring
stuff.
up curling, I am trying to petition Marian to put in their own ice rink, and then I want to start the Fond du Lac Curling Club.
Well,
Because there's a shortage of ice time in the Fond du Lac community.
Yeah, there
Hockey
is.
is super prevalent.
Do you guys play at the Blue Line?
yes, we
Oh,
do.
you do? Okay.
Yes, we do.
I've looked into it. I've tried to petition for the Fond du Lac Curling Club.
That'd
We
be
just
cool.
haven't gotten there.
That'd be cool.
And I think a women's fly fishing club would be also a good
My
addition.
sister went to school in Alabama, and she was a member of the fly fishing club. She went for some sort of environmental degree, and she would kill me if she heard me say it that nonchalantly. But she was she was one of the only girls on the women's
In the club?
Yeah, in the club. Thank you. So I do have a question, actually, that you
Sure.
brought up. You're talking about being a part of the Fond du Lac community. So I've always been curious. Going to Marquette, a huge part of what they sold was the downtown Milwaukee experience. How much of Marian is the fact it's in Fond du Lac, and how are the changes and some of the revitalization of the Fond du Lac community impacting or benefiting Marian?
I think in multiple ways. Certainly the addition of Thelma to our community, from my viewpoint, was hugely important. And we've had various events that we've held at Thelma, whether it's poetry reading or musical kinds of things. And I think we've also we've had some of our faculty who have participated in art exhibits, for example. With our Center for Health Professions, located in downtown Fond du Lac, we are part of the downtown Fond du Lac community. And as Fond du Lac continues to make changes and there's growth in the downtown area, I think it benefits everybody in the community, and that includes Marian University, because our students go downtown.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. The nurses are down there during the week, not so much on the weekend, but students are not in class 24/7. And they enjoy, what Fond du Lac has to offer. And so anytime there's an improvement in that, it impacts our ability to, not only for our students to attract and retain students, but it's also important for our employees. Okay. Sometimes, when we interview folks, they will say, well, what does Fond du Lac have to offer? Or they have a perception that Fond du Lac doesn't have very much to offer, and they should live in maybe Milwaukee or Madison or Appleton or other communities. And so we really try to talk about the Fond du Lac community, and I think it's important for them to be a part of the Fond du Lac community, whether it is serving on a board, engaging in community service in some other kind of way. We all have a responsibility to support Fond du Lac and to make sure that it's a thriving, robust community, not just downtown, but actually all of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Marian's a huge part of that with, just having a good sized college in town, the athletics side of things. There's we used to play basketball at the Y every day. We now rent a small gym down the street, but there's always a lot of Marian students, playing basketball, and it is a huge component of the local area.
It is, and we love being part of this area.
That's great. Well, is there anything else you want to touch on or talk about, or what's exciting about 2023? What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to putting the pandemic behind us, just for the record.
Can you knock on wood while you're sitting there? I can't quite reach the table, but please.
I would second that.
Yes. And, we have some exciting things happening right now. We are in the process of exploring new options, new initiatives at Marian. I have 2 ad hoc committees comprised of trustees, faculty, staff, and also there's student representation on each of these committees. And they're looking at a couple of things. One has to do with the possibility of bringing on a football team. Now, I want to make it clear there's no promises we're going down that route. It's simply exploration. But we are looking at the possibility of a football team. We are also looking at, our gymnasium, our gym floor is in very good shape, but the locker rooms are original equipment. And our concession stand consists of a card table on which we sell snacks. So I think that could use a little upgrade. Wellness. We are also...
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that. That
Yes.
seemed super exciting.
It is. And so we are looking at how can we even more fully incorporate wellness for our faculty, our staff, and our students.
But there was a program, too. There's a wellness program?
We have an exercise and sports science program.
Okay. So
Yeah.
wellness is independent of the curriculum.
It is.
Okay, gotcha.
It is. And so that committee is looking at the possibility of football.
Okay.
What would that mean? We know it's expensive. Football teams are not cheap to start. So we have to very carefully evaluate all the pros and cons of that. And then the gym and also wellness. We don't really have a lot of space besides our gymnasium. And given we have so many athletes, the athletes are using the gym and the workout area all the time, which means it's difficult for other students to participate in wellness activities. So we're exploring what that might look like. And then we're also looking at nursing. We're focusing on a couple of areas at Marian relative to academic programs. Nursing and health sciences is one of them. Okay, the demand in that area continues to be very, very strong. And also our business programs is another area. And then the third is teacher education, because that's what we're founded on. So the other committee that is really doing some work is looking at what do we need in the way of a facility for nursing. We moved downtown in 2000. We bought the building in 2014. We moved in 2015. While it's a great building, having some of our students are international students. They don't necessarily have a vehicle here. Mm-hmm. So being able to get back and forth to the downtown campus is rather difficult for some of our students. So we're evaluating what do we need, where should it be located, and then what's the next step in terms of doing something about that. We're looking at bringing on 3 new health science programs next year and in 2024. Medical lab scientist is one. That's an undergraduate program. Pathology assistant is a master's program. There are only 12 programs in North America. And then we are also looking at, and I just blinked on the third one, histology. So we're looking at, we're adding the construction management, and also, I didn't mention it, but insurance and risk management, and then the 3 allied health programs. So we're evaluating our resources. Our science building is phenomenal. And we redid that and put on an addition in 2018. The building is state-of-the-art. We love it. But some of our other buildings are a little bit older. And so it's time to look at, what do we need to do to improve our facilities.
When you start a new program, where does that, that knowledge base come from? How do you build up? I mean, that's a lot of, how do you build up that expertise? Is it purely through professors that you're hiring, or is there a starter pack for for health sciences, or what does it look like to implement something like that?
That's a great question, and really it involves multiple areas coming together, looking at, first of all, what's the market demand, because the margin for error in terms of adding programs, especially big, expensive programs.
You want to use your dollars wisely.
Yes, indeed, we do. And so we gather data first. Before we started construction management, for example, we had a company that we work with called Hanover Research, and we had them gather data for this region, for the Midwest, and for the United States, just to see what's the demand like. Because we don't want to create a program and then nobody's interested in it. That would not be a good idea. And then one of the things that I really like to do is form advisory boards. Bring in those individuals who are experts in the field and get their input. Could we create a program on our own? Sure. Have we done that? Absolutely. But I think it's always good to bring in the experts who are working in the field, who know what's needed. They know what's needed in the way of the curriculum. They know what graduates should be able to do and what they should know when they graduate with a degree. And then we also, for example, with construction management and some of our other programs, we have specialized accreditation. So teacher education, we have the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. For nursing, there's a national group that provides guidance. The same is true for social work, for example. And it's also true for construction management. So we work with accrediting bodies, specialized accrediting bodies, and then also our overall accrediting body is the Higher Learning Commission, and so we work with them. And then we also try to make sure that we hire really competent program directors because they guide the program and then they help to hire faculty as we bring them on to teach in the programs.
So do the faculty members or the professors then report to the program directors?
They do.
They do. Okay.
They do.
That's
Yes.
very interesting.
So there are multiple layers. Colleges and the universities have multiple layers, but the beauty of a small private liberal arts institution is we have less layers, for example, than a state school or for the technical schools.
Yep.
Yeah, so we can be we can be much more nimble, which is a good thing.
Yeah, we're similar in a lot of ways.
The more you talk about it, it's interesting how much it sounds like it runs like a business. And at the end of the day, I mean, it is a business. It's just there's a lot of similarities between, we have different departments here. We have different directors who manage like LED production versus pole production versus IT marketing. It all sounds so similar.
Yeah.
Principles are the same across the board, I guess.
I think they are. The difference is we are a nonprofit organization, but we're still a business.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the cash flows and all of that still apply.
Yes, they certainly do.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. This was very enjoyable, and it's been great. Getting to know you guys a little bit more, and again, if there's anything we can do to help with, or even as some of the the construction process starts with any athletic complexes or I'm not making a sale. Anything we can do to help. We're always a lot of the sports lighting related stuff that we do in the area is usually coming from a spot of supporting and helping. For instance, we've done a few fields in Lakeside Park. We did Fond du Soccer Complex, and we donated a bunch of materials for that. So we try and support our community locally, and then take that knowledge and market that across the country. So if there's anything we can do to help, we're here, and we appreciate what you guys do in the area.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And if you're going to have a sale anytime soon, let me know.
It is the end of the year. I could put you in touch with a salesperson.
I'm surprised someone didn't just come charging in here now.
That's funny.
Their ears just all perked
thank
up.
you so much.
Thank
All right,
you.
we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.